many years were you there?
Almost 10 years for the whole duration of Apollo.
NASA.
No, I worked for IBM on NASA's Apollo program, one of the contractors. We had the instrument unit. When you look at the vehicle, it's that black circle that goes around at the top.
Okay, hold on. You tell me that on there.
Okay.
Today we're going to outer space with Martha Lemastors. She has written a new book. It is called The Step, One Woman's Journey to Finding Her Own Happiness and Success during the Apollo space program. And she gives credit where credit is due. The technical team, the engineers, the analysts, programmers, and yes, even the secretaries and typists and the administrative side. Welcome to our broadcast. Martha Lemastors, how are you?
Thank you, Rhett. I'm very well.
Very nice to see you. And she is the quintessential Southern gal.
That's right.
Yes. And it's great to have you here and your effervescent personality and your beautiful smile. And what provoked you after all these years now to write The Step, Martha?
Well, I told my coworkers at IBM that I would write a book about them someday. In fact, I threatened them. I said, you know I'm going to write a book someday, and you're going to be in it, especially after what you did last night. So, so I gathered a lot of those incidents that are in my book.
Wonderful. Now, you were working, I guess, with IBM on the NASA Apollo program. Explain how you got involved with IBM and then how you got involved with the Apollo program.
Well, I started working for IBM as a typist, and back in the 60s, most women had to start in the secretarial pool.
Mm-hmm.
And I started as a typist, typing all the technical manuals. Then I was advanced to a secretary in the writers department. And then one day, one of the male writers had a hangover and couldn't come into work. So my boss said, Martha, how about you going for that interview and write up the story? And that's when I started writing. And I wrote all the press releases, and I wrote speeches and technical articles. And
well, so here was this sleeping talent.
That's right.
And it emerged.
Yes.
Wonderful. Now, and you're still writing now with your new book. And have you written other books?
No, this is my first book. I do write a column for the Vero Beach Press Journal News Weekly section on behalf of my church.
Oh, wonderful. What church is that?
Christian Science Church.
Christian Science Church.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so let's give credit where credit's due, because you said this was quite a team, and you had camaraderie, and I know one thing that Sam Walton said. He said individuals don't succeed, teams do.
That's right. That's right. And the way I got the title to this book, The Step, goes back to my Southern roots. Because as a girl growing up in Fort Lauderdale, I remember I was in the 6th grade playing softball. And everybody spoke Southern then. So I'm going to tell you this story in a Southern accent.
Okay.
I was playing softball and against the 5th graders. And it came to my turn to be at bat, and I hit a long ball, and I ran around the bases and jumped on home plate. But Mrs. Spaulding, my teacher, yelled, "You're out." And I said, "Out? How can I be out?" And she said, "Honey, you didn't touch second base. You've got to touch all the bases." So I gritted my teeth, and I sat on the bench waiting for my turn. When my turn came up, I hit that darn ball further than the other one, and I jumped on every base. So it was the last day of school. And Mrs. Spaulding says, "Now, you children can be released now, but I want to talk to Martha after class."
Oh, okay.
And I said, "Oh my goodness, I've gotten in trouble." And she said, "Martha, you're not the smartest child in my class, but what you do have is the step." And I said, "The step, ma'am?" And she said, "Well, honey, that's an old Southern term. It's somebody that has a quicker pace, that gets the job done, that perseveres. That's what the step is. And someday you're going to find out how far it'll just take you."
Oh, it's a really cool story. She spoke that into your life. Isn't it amazing the power of words?
Yes, it stayed with me all my life.
Sure.
And no matter what I was doing, if I played tennis, and I was a very good tennis player, in fact, won the IBM men's tennis tournament.
You won the IBM men's tennis tournament?
And then later.
Did you go and like dressed up as a guy? Or
Oh, no.
How did you manage to do that? In that
because
day
there
and
were
age?
no other women players. And I said, well, I want to play in the men's tournament.
Oh, my word. And you
So
won
I
it.
won it. And of course, that got me in a little bit of trouble later on.
Yeah.
Because
Why?
there was after one of our facility dinners, some of the astronauts asked a few of us girls to come out and have a drink with them at the Hilton afterwards. And I was not a drinker. And every time I went places, I had a Coke or 7-Up. And my friend next to me said, now, Martha, we know you don't drink, but don't order a Coke. It's too high schoolish. So I didn't know what to drink, and we started ordering drinks. And all of a sudden, she says, I'm going to have a scotch and water. And I said, okay, I'll have that. And then the astronauts, this group of astronauts said, well, let's make some toast. Let's toast to John Kennedy, who gave us this great goal of getting on the moon.
Yeah.
We toasted, and I chug-a-lugged that drink. Okay, well, let's toast to the astronaut crew. Okay, how about let's toast to IBM and all the IBMers. And as it went on, I was not myself. And my friends started bragging about my tennis ability. And my friend said, well, you know, Martha can beat most men. And one of the astronauts said, well, you know, he's a pretty good player. I think he could beat her. And all of a sudden, there was a bet going on between IBM and the astronauts about who would win this match. So I accepted that match. But you'll have to find out what happened if you read my book.
And the book is The Step. And of course, here you are in your youth. You were quite a cutie, and you were one woman among 200 men?
Yeah, the men outnumbered the women 200 to 1.
Wow. So this was back in the 60s.
60s and 70s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what about, sexual harassment?
Oh, honey, I can hold my own. I've never worried about that. Now, see those coveralls I have on in that picture?
Yes.
Women were deemed a safety hazard anywhere in the VAB when you were around the vehicle, because NASA had this theory that there was no changing the men's behavior. If a woman was up high and I was in a miniskirt, the men were going to be looking, and they might fall over the sides of the swing arms of the pedestal there, which only had a little.
Well, the desire for procreation is overwhelming for the male. But you still look really cute in that. Yeah. You look like a model.
Oh,
I mean, yes. And tell me something. So did you ever marry?
Oh, yes. I was married, and my husband, before I started working at IBM, my husband was also in the space program. He was on the launch teams for both Mercury and Gemini and Apollo. The Cape area led the nation in divorces in the 60s and 70s. Shifts of work, 17, 18 hours to make this goal of getting a man on the moon before 1970. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of marriages that broke apart. So
that's too bad.
When I started working for IBM, I was a single mother raising 3 daughters.
Oh, my.
Yes.
A single mom with 3 daughters. That's a lot of estrogen in one household.
And it worked out great because all my daughters now are very strong and personable and successful.
Well, I can't imagine why. All right, let's take a little break, then we'll come back, all right?
Okay.
She is Martha Lemastors. She has written the book, The Step, One Woman's Journey to Finding Her Own Happiness and Success During the Apollo Space Program. She's going to be at the Vero Beach Book Center, and that is this Wednesday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She will be signing copies and talking to you there. Come and meet her live and in person, Martha Lemastors, okay? The names of the astronauts will be forever inscribed in our history books, but the names of the entire Apollo launch support team at the Kennedy Space Center and the thousands who supported Apollo elsewhere will only be known to the few that read this book. This is the Mayor of the Airwaves. We'll be right back with Martha Lemastors and The Step. When we return, it's not over yet.
I love it. I love it.
You ready for a second segment? Let me know. Oh, my shoulder's really bothering me. It's been for about 21 days. I had it adjusted too. I don't know what it is. The only thing that happens 3 times in the past weekend, I got the zzz right from here. And somebody said, well, it could be a tooth or something. Do you think that could affect this, or this would all go out? I don't know.
Oh, it could. I'm not an expert on
Something's
medical
wrong.
things.
Well, it worries me a little bit. It's because of the gout's in my life now. Barbara, you haven't met her yet. It's too bad we couldn't get you to write something for us. Well, actually, we have people. We have Stanford Erickson. I'll introduce you. I want to meet him sometime. He is a former White House correspondent. Well, he writes, letters to the editor. These big letters that appear in the Press Journal on Sundays. But he also writes for us sometimes.
Oh,
maybe you'd like to write something.
I don't have time.
Oh, okay.
And I married very well the second time.
Oh, good.
So I don't need the money.
No. Well, we don't pay anyway. We're community. We're community. What do you call it? Good. So who did you marry the second time?
I married. I went to work for Harris after IBM.
Yeah.
And I met my husband there. He was a senior vice president at Harris Corporation. Married him. And we, from there, we went up to Washington, D.C., where he was president of American Satellite. And then he was president and CEO of Condell Telephone that was bought out by Verizon.
Wow.
He passed on.
What did he die of?
Alzheimer's.
Oh, there you go.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. But that's.
I'm going to put the air. I think it's a little hot in here.
Yeah, we could use some air.
He was about to say, are you ready?
So thank you for your advice.
It worked.
Well, I joined Twitter
Okay.
at that time, but the money I still had, I probably have hired
Are you ready?
Sure. She is Martha Lemastors. Good morning. This is Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the Airways. Who loves you, baby? I tell you what. She's a beautiful gal, and you'll see her pretty picture, her in her IBM outfit at Apollo during, where is the shot taken?
That was taken at the VAB, and I have
And the VAB means what?
vehicle assembly building.
Aha.
That's where the vehicle is mated,
To
put
the,
together
yeah.
before it goes to the pad.
How exciting to be a part of, by the way, the title of the book is The Step. She's Martha Lemastors, The Step, One Woman's Journey to Finding Her Own Happiness and Success During the Apollo Space Program. She'll be at the Vero Beach Book Center this Wednesday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You get signed copies of this book. And it's very exciting that you were one among 200 men. You were the one woman. But she said she could hold her own and took care of herself. And
Yes, that's right.
my mother when they used to talk about having equality, I know my mom used to say, equality, I want to keep my superiority.
I like that.
Yeah, you too. You would have liked her. Okay, so let's talk about the greatest engineering team that was ever put together to get us on the moon and follow the vision that John F. Kennedy had set forth for the United States of America. You're part of that history.
Well, I wrote about the engineers, the analysts, the programmers that made it happen.
Even the typists.
That's right. They were all important because after the Apollo 1 disaster, where we lost 3 astronauts, NASA came up with a manned flight awareness program that emphasized the importance of everybody's job. Even a typist, a typo could result in someone's death. So it was an intense time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was that explained to everybody too? Let's say I was a typist. I would be told that you know how important this
Oh,
job is,
absolutely.
Mr. Palmer.
everybody,
One error, a typo could bring down
everybody.
They were all aware of that.
That's right.
Phew, that's intense. Did that somehow thwart though creativity? Did it paralyze anybody because of that pressure?
No, we had such a great teamwork and respect for each other. Um, I never remember having bad words with anybody or hearing anybody that did. I can remember one of my office mates smoked, and everybody smoked in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember the closest thing I got to disliking anyone was when they transferred her out, and I wasn't going to be subjected to her smoking all day. I sang hallelujah, hallelujah. And that's about the closest I ever got to any kind of scuffle like that. But we had such respect for each other. When I did my articles, the engineers stayed with me until I understood it and got it right.
Now, the articles you would write would be about what? For these public relation releases or?
Yes, before every launch, we'd probably talk about maybe our test conductor for Apollo 11, what he does, or we'd talk about the system. IBM had the instrument unit, which was the brains of Apollo that set it on its trajectory to the moon and was later jettisoned into the ocean. So these people worked on that round black circle that you'd see on a Saturn V. That was the IU.
Simply amazing. So what did you learn about human motivation and human character? Because this is quite a program to be a part of. This history. This is the program that inspired others to have a dream.
Yeah. Well,
that the unconquerable was conquerable.
Yeah. And we were in the a race with the Russians. This was a national goal.
Pride, patriotism.
Yes, all of America united. They were all for us. When that Apollo 11 went up, everybody was watching. And it saddens me that some people don't think it happens, that it was done in a studio. I mean, I know that the Russians and the Chinese followed us. They tracked us. And if we hadn't done it, they would have been the first to call foul.
Now, the Apollo team faced challenges and temptations like anyone else in the 60s, divorce, affairs, deaths, 3 shifts of work schedules. I know I used to work a 12-hour grueling graveyard shift. That's tough. What shift were you on?
I was only on the 7:30 to 4 o'clock shift.
And did you live right there in Titusville?
No, I lived in Melbourne in Indialantic, so I had an hour's drive out to the Cape every day.
Oh my!
All those years.
Wouldn't have it made sense maybe to purchase something a little closer?
No, my children were in school.
Oh yeah, and your husband worked there.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't want to disrupt him.
What about the tragedies when we lost astronauts? That's kind of
yes, Apollo 1. That was the most depressing time at the Cape.
What happened then, to refresh our memory?
Well, there was a fire in the cockpit during testing. And it...
on the ground, right?
On the ground, yeah. And because of that, there were steps taken that changed everything and made it safer. And it turned around the Apollo, and I think good came from it.
How about the flight where we lost, the school teacher? That was
that was shuttle. That was on the shuttle.
That was after. Okay,
yeah, I never worked on the shuttle.
Right, that's right. I forgot about that. Okay. So, any other stories that you could that are maybe something from The Step? Her new book, by the way, Martha Lemastors, The Step: One Woman's Journey to Finding Her Own Success, Happiness During the Apollo Space Program.
Well, I can tell you those coveralls that you see there, women were deemed a safety hazard.
Yeah.
So one day I was interviewing our Apollo 11 test conductor in the control center, and you had to have a NASA photographer in those days. And after we got through taking the pictures, he said, the Apollo 14 astronauts are going to be up at the IU level, which was a 362-foot level, talking to your IBMers. And I said, I've got to get up there and get that photo. He said, "You can't go up there. You've got your mini dress on."
You did?
And you don't have time to get the coveralls on. I said, if I was a man, I could just go right up there. I'm going to get that picture.
Good.
So I went up there, got Alan Shepard shaking the hands with our test conductor and thanking the other IBMers. It was wonderful. So I was just grinning from ear to ear. And then the NASA safety guy comes over and says, "I'd like your badge. Relinquish your badge." And the IBM test conductor said something, and he says, "And who are you? I'll take your badge too." So I not only got my badge taken away.
Now, what do you mean your badge signal? For how long?
Until I did my punishment. And my punishment was to go to pad evacuation training, which meant I had to go to this 3-day course that safety put on, where you learn to recognize the different gases that are used on the pad.
Mm-hmm.
And then it culminates with you going down this chute, which it's like a big slide, and it goes all around in a circle around the pad and comes out in a rubber room with red lights, and you have to stay there. And that room was equipped for enough supplies for a week. And there was also a crawl space that you could get out of that took you about 500 feet away from the pad if there was a fire. So that was an adventure.
How long did you have to stay in that room?
Until there was a big whistle that blows. But, there were some interesting activities.
This is all because you wore that mini dress.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think about situations like today? It was just on the news about that, the volleyball team. And the volleyball team, the females have brought in, they're Olympians. They won. They brought in $20 million. They're paid $4 million, while the men are paid $18 million or whatever. Totally unfair.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Women should get equal pay.
I'm a feminist. I'm a feminist through and
through. That's not feminist. That's just righteous.
Yes. I agree with their point of view, and I hope they get it.
What do you hope to accomplish, Martha Lemastors, with your book, The Step, One Woman's Journey to Finding Her Own Happiness and Success During the Apollo Space Program?
Well, I'll tell you. Recently, I took my cousin out to Kennedy Space Center, to the Visitor Center. And we drove around in a bus for 2 hours, and we stared at buildings. Now, these are the buildings that I had been able to go into, and I was even on the roof of a lot of those buildings. Well, at the end, they have a Apollo building. And I thought, oh, good, this is going to be great. So they had a big vehicle lying on its side, a Saturn V, and it was divided into stages. And as I looked at those stages, there was not one sign of who the contractors were. Nothing for North American, nothing for McDonnell Douglas, nothing for Boeing, nothing for IBM. Most people don't even know.
I didn't until I met you today.
That IBM was part of this magnificent team. If you go to the IBM website, there's one sentence that says, IBM participated in the Apollo program and the space shuttle. That's not enough, folks. These people were an outstanding team. They need to be recognized. And there's not one sign out there that says anything about IBM.
And so you give them a claim in this book of yours.
You bet I do.
Good for you. Well, I hope you continue at it, and I hope we can continue to help you. Will this book be available, do you think, in the bookstore up there?
It's available on Amazon.com and all the bookstores, and it's at Vero Beach Book Center.
And you'll be there at Vero Beach Book Center Wednesday at 4 o'clock signing copies of your book. The names of the astronauts will be forever inscribed in our history books, but the names of the entire Apollo launch support team at the Kennedy Space Center and thousands who supported Apollo elsewhere will only be known to a few. The technical team, the engineers, analysts, programmers, yes, even the secretaries and typists. She gives them the glory they're due in her new book, Martha Lemastors' The Step, One Woman's Journey to Finding Her Own Happiness and Success During the Apollo Space Program. Available on Amazon.com and everywhere. Thank you for being on our broadcast, Martha.
Thank you, Rhett.
Look forward to seeing you more in the future. This is the mayor of the airwaves. Who loves you, baby? I said that once, and the next thing I know is the sheriff called me on the phone like a day or two later. This is when Gary Wheeler was there. He goes, Julio. And I mean,
Unlock your car if you would.
Oh,
and
Thank you.
and I immediately he called me up and said, "Hey, who loves you, baby?" And I realized, oh, I think you have something here, Rhett. Make sure you indicate that, and I did. Just flew out one day, you know.
when is this going to air?
Tomorrow
At what
and
time?
Wednesday.
Write it down for me on the
Um,
times so I can pass it on to my PR crew.
let's see. Wonder what's a good time to play this. When would you like to hear it tomorrow?
It doesn't make any difference.
If I play it at 8 tomorrow, then it plays at 6 a.m. on Wednesday.
Mhm.
If I play it at 9 tomorrow, then it plays at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. I
9
think-
and 7 sound good.
I think so too. So I'm going to go with 9 and 7. 9 Tuesday.
And what's the call letters and all?
I'll write it all down.
Yeah,
for
so
you.
I'll leave your keys in the back.
Okay, 10. No. 9 on Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Let's start this over again. Okay. So here we got. Well, I've got my card.
Okay.
I paid for these things, we might as well use them, right?
Here's my card.
Oh, good. Great. Does that have your cell on it?
No,
Okay. Do you have a cell?
I don't use my.
Oh, you don't
cell
use
phone.
it?
No. I'd rather use my home phone.
That's good. You have MarthaLemastors.com. That's
Mhm.
good. Okay, so, all right. I have your phone though, don't
My phone number at
I?
home.
Is it on here?
No.
Okay, what's your home phone number?
231
231.
4262.
Now, how long are you up? Do you go up to the Carolinas the whole summer, or do you go back and forth?
No, once I get up there, I don't go down off the mountain.
Do you not?
No.
Now, what's the mean temperature up there?
I think it varies. I know I'm too much of a Floridian. When it starts getting into the 40s and 30s, I leave October 1st. I can't stand cold weather. But I usually go up mid-May and come back October 1st.
May. You'll be
Mhm.
going soon.
Yeah,
7 a.m. to 7:30.
7 a.m. and 7:30?
No, you're going to be on 9 o'clock Tuesday to
Oh.
9:30, and then on Wednesday 7 a.m. to 7:30.
Okay, did you write down where I'm supposed to go to get that?
Now, you can get an app for your phone, which is called iHeart. I mean, I'll write it down there. iHeart Radio, or you're up at JI, Johns Island.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't know if you get my FM up there, 107.9 FM or 1370 AM. Now, anybody in the United States can tune in. Where's your phone? Okay. I'm going to download the app if you don't have the app for you.
Okay, yeah,
Oh, how do you put
because
this on?
let me turn it
Press
back
this?
on, yeah. And then
Okay.
I've gotta put the,
I don't even bother with that. And if I were you, I'd get rid of it. Every time?
no, it doesn't bother me. I
Oh,
don't
good.
use it
Well,
that
well, if
often.
you don't use it
You know what I use this for? It's a Bluetooth that goes in my car.
And
So in my car, I can talk